Why do you have to move? What happened that causes you to have to move? And now the move that you're going to make, are you going to have to do it by yourself? Are you going to be living alone? Where are you going? Are you going to be going to an apartment? Are you going to be going to another house? Are you going to be renting another place? Are you going to have to live in your vehicle? Will this be the end of sticks and bricks for you and then more of a mobile living situation for you? All of these things can be stressful because the economy today may force you or may force your hand to have to make a change. Then the other thing is, what's it like for you when you have to think about moving? Because people move and change the way that they live for many reasons, but I would say the biggest reasons is due to divorce, relationships breaking up, and it doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is, or a conflict, or maybe finances, or maybe that somebody that you're renting from is choosing to sell the property that you're living in, and now you have to go somewhere else. Just sitting out here on a rock. Well, where I live, I'm living with family, and family can decide to move together, and they all are in agreement with the way that they want to live together. And then after several years, which has happened with my family, people's family change. The dynamics of the family can change. Families can grow. Families could, have different things that they want to do. Families could have different places that they want to live. And so if you decided together to live together in this one location, what happens when somebody changes their mind and say, you know what, I want to live somewhere else? What happens to everybody that's living in there that agreed to move together in the first place? What will they do? All of these things have to be considered when you go into living with people, because something can happen and things can change. For me, it changed when my family that I'm living with decided that they wanted to do something different. And even though everybody may or may not be in agreement with it, you still may not want to do that particular thing. So you have to think about, what will you do next? The thing that I recognize too when it comes to living with family is that nobody is wrong because they want something different. And so I am not a type of person that's going to make somebody wrong for having a different mindset about how they want to live their life, because everybody is grown and everybody has the opportunity to change their mind about something. So it's not about who's right, who's wrong when it comes to where you want to live and how you want to live. But the thing is, you have to have those conversations before you decide to move in together with people, because that will come up. The cost of living in a home anyway has been increasing significantly, whether you're renting a place or whether you're paying a mortgage. The cost of living in a home has gone up. And a lot of times people have issues with amongst each other about finances. Because if you're making so much money and then the expenses of the home goes up, you have to be able to afford those changes because the cost is going up, but it doesn't necessarily mean your finances is going up along with it. The cost of living and cost of living increases and people's salary is not necessarily happening at the same time. I always told my children who are adults now that whenever they go to find a place, whether they're buying or whether they're renting, they need to make sure that where they go live, where they decide to live, can be taken care of by one of those people that are living in that home. And even if it is a multi-income household, it still needs to be something that could be handled by one person if the other person becomes unable to be able to help with the bills. Anything could happen. And we all saw that in 2020 when things did happen. And people that were earning a lot of money turned out that they weren't earning anything during that time. So the cost of living has to be considered when you're deciding to live together. When I was thinking about moving and going and living on my own, I had to think about the money that I had coming in and whether or not that money could afford me either a piece of land or some kind of structure to go on that land for me to live out of. I had to think about all of that. And I happen to be a veteran, so I do have disability check coming in, but I also have a private practice. So when I decide to retire, I need to be able to take care of wherever it is that I'm going to be living on my own. And so I had to think about that when I started looking for places. But the thing is, where we are together, all together, that is not the case. One of us could not sustain the place where we live on our own, individually on our own, if something were to happen to the other people that are in the house and earning an income. So that has to be thought about. So for that reason, it's so important for one person, each person rather, to have an emergency fund that could sustain them in whatever property that they're in on their own if the other parties, one, decided to move out, or two, were unable to take care of themselves due to whatever happens, anything that could happen. Because it is too easy for somebody to become homeless or somebody to become in danger of losing where they live. So all of those things, were a factor for me. What I was thinking about is like, oh my goodness, I need to get things together, because even though we're not choosing, we're deciding not to separate into, we're going to stay together still. But if it happens to come up again, I need to be ready for that. So here are some steps I just think everybody needs to consider when transitioning to living on your own. One, create a budget. I don't care if people don't like budgets. I know I have to have a budget. And so having a budget on what you're bringing in and what you're going to have to pay out by yourself, that is so important because at least you have a clear picture of what you can and cannot afford long term. And because moving is stressful for most people, I don't know anybody that enjoys moving. I don't. I know when I was thinking about moving on my own, I all these things that I was thinking about, man, I got to get this transferred, I got to change this address, I got to all these different things. It was so stressful. So it will be good to have emotional support from family or friends when you're transitioning to living on your own. And you don't want to like break relationships just because you're having to move out or you're choosing to move out or to go your separate ways. Keep your family or friends or whoever close anyway. Hold on to relationships. Don't let the situation break up your relationships. For some people, moving and living on their own is a sign of independence. And, it's empowering to be able to do it on your own. And maybe you're not somebody that likes living on your own. I get that, because I lived on my own for many years. And then when I decided to share expenses with family and move together with family, it was probably the best thing that could have happened because even though you can still be alone when people are around or still feel alone when people are around, having that close enough connection is easier than not having any connection whatsoever. And if you do decide to be by yourself and live alone, having a real sense of organization and developing skills for independence is so important because maybe when you were living with someone, they did all of the cooking or they did all of the grocery shopping or they did all of the cleaning and managing the yard and taking out trash and stuff like that. Well, when you become independent and you're living solely, it's living alone, then you're going to have to develop those skills and be okay with doing those things on your own again. And I think that is exciting because I was looking forward to doing that again because if I choose to eat a certain way, the household that I'm living in may not share that same idea about eating. And so that can be a challenge in itself. Somebody's cooking one thing, maybe you don't eat meat and they cook meat all the time. Maybe you don't like the smell of certain foods, but yes, that's what's going on. You don't really have control over that. So, but when you get into your own place, you basically have control over everything that goes on. And if that's what you want, if that's what you enjoy, that's a great thing. But if that's not your situation, then you can still learn to work together with the people that you're living with. And one thing I noticed when I was looking for a place on my own is that the cost of moving into a new place is ridiculous. Like the cost, it was so high that it just was so discouraging to me. And when you have places that want like 3 times the amount of the rent just to move in, that takes a big drain on your bank account. But I'm telling you right now, you better save up that money as soon as you possibly can because you never know when that might be what will take place. You never know if you may have to have that money available. So if anything, if you're not in a situation now where you have to go live on your own, then prepare yourself for one of those events. Why? Because it could happen at any time. So just a little recap. I am no longer planning to live on my own right now, which is what I was going to have to do in a few months. But since that came up for me, now I am mentally, financially, and spiritually preparing myself for a time where that might be the thing that has to happen. So that means saving up money for moving and always looking at the areas that I might possibly want to move in case I have to. And then thirdly, looking for land, looking for some land that is mine and I don't have to worry about moving. Because even with people who are doing van life and, trying to live in vehicles or mobile homes or whatever, even they have stressors where they have to figure out where they're going to go from one point to the next point. It's like you can stay at a campground and pay for 6 months, or you can stay here. We all have to be mindful of the changes that could happen. And having an emergency fund for some major move is so important. So if you're transitioning to living on your own, or you may have to transition to living on your own at some point, whether it's a six of bricks or in a vehicle or van life or whatever, at least be ready. Be ready for that and have your money ready, because it's easier to make moves when you have the money and the funds available. Because when you don't have the funds readily available, that is so stressful, so stressful. So that's where I'm at right now, looking for land, because that's all this is about right now. I'm trying to find land that I could end up retiring on, and it's all mine. I don't ever have to worry about whether or not somebody decides that they want to do something different. I'm looking for where I want to live. Is it safe? Is it accessible to family? Is it accessible for me? If something major happens again in this country or around the world, can I be okay where I'm at? So I hope this helps somebody. I hope it gave you something to think about, because it's a big deal. And I didn't realize how stressful it was until I was faced with having to make a decision. And I'm thankful that I don't have to do it now, not as soon as I want it, but it's still in my mind. It's still at the forefront of my mind now. And now I'm not going to be caught off guard. So in the meantime, everyone, good mental health, good spiritual health, and as always, good physical health. Y'all, please take great care.